Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, produced in partnership with Operation Smile. Operation Smile provides life-changing surgery to children and adults around the world with cleft lip and palate. To find out more about their work, please visit emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to Madlaina Brogt, Regional Head Recruitment Delivery, and Sally Higham, Director, Head of Talent Attraction at Lonza. They discuss how the company's mission to make a meaningful difference helps to attract and retain top talent.
So hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, in partnership as ever with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As my colleague Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome two talent acquisition superstars onto the show today, and I'm hoping it's going to be a really nice show. We're really excited to get this going. So welcome to Madlaina and Sally from Lonza. Hi, how are you?
Well, thanks. Good morning. Welcome to you.
Hi, Paul. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, you too. I know you're both obviously at the Lonza offices in Basel today, aren't you? I think in Switzerland.
That is absolutely correct. We are at the Lonza Tower overseeing the city of Basel.
That's great. And I know, obviously, what we like to do to start the podcast off, we like to ease your way into the show. And given that we have this partnership with Operation Smile, the medical charity that help children who are born with cleft lip and palate, we thought, given their company name, it's always nice to ask the guests a question on what was the last thing that made them smile. So, Madlaina, maybe if you want to start off, what was the last thing that made you smile?
Yes, actually, I thought about that. And you know what made me smile was tasting the amazing chocolate we received on the occasion of the 125th anniversary of Lonza, and that I happened to try last weekend. And honestly, the chocolate was shaped as the Lonza Tower, which was amazing, and was produced by a Swiss chocolatier. And the entire celebration of this amazing jubilee was just such a great experience, and enabled us to look back to an amazing company history that started way back in 1897, and a fascinating journey from a local small company to a global organization.
Okay, that is good, and there's one thing that Switzerland is well known for, that's chocolate. So I guess it was a high quality chocolate and a good reminder of how far Lonza have come as a business over the 125 years. Huh?
Absolutely,
I will second it. It's a very, very nice piece of chocolate.
I was going to ask if she shared it with you all. So yeah, that's good. There was sharing involved as well.
we all had one. It was all on all of our desks. I do say Switzerland is the land of chocolate.
So was that the same for you, Sally? Was that the last thing that made you smile as well?
No, mine's yes, chocolate always makes me smile, I will say. But no, for me, my son, he always brings a smile to my face when he's not being a grumpy teenager. He's just turned 13. But no, he's a fabulous little character, and he's, for me, incredibly funny, and he always has some funny little things to sort of share. And I think the 13-year-old's perspective on life, I think sometimes as we in the work world, sometimes it's quite nice to sort of take a step back and have a 13-year-old perspective whilst you're in the thick of things. So whether it's him quoting Pokemon facts at me or whatever it might be, but as it brings a smile to Madlaina's, as we were just talking about Pokemon. So yes, and actually it's lovely to hear that from as a charity. Jacob's had a couple of operations himself actually at Great Ormond Street, so I think it's a lovely thing to do and to support the charity. So that's fabulous to see and to hear. So thank you.
No, that's great. No, thank you for the insights there. It's, as I say, it's always nice to get the show off in a very positive, smiley frame of mind. And I mean, I think obviously, we're recording this on the 9th of March, and yesterday was International Women's Day. I mean, I think maybe with a bit of foresight, we could have maybe recorded this yesterday. But actually, given you both mentioned the being parents and the challenge challenges of career and balancing that with being a full-time mum as well. I mean, I thought I'd ask you just a question on the Women's Day. Looking back on it from yesterday, I mean, obviously, things seems to be moving in the right direction, but I know there's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into this from the Lonza point of view as well, with the equality and equity that I saw you mentioned on LinkedIn yesterday, Sally. So, yeah. I mean, how is it at Lonza for both of you?
So do you know, and I was hosting, and I'm yet to post actually, funnily enough, but I'm part of Rise Up at Lonza. And actually we hosted a event for 5 generations in the workplace. And then actually we had another event later on in the day, which actually we had a female astronaut, which was from our Houston site, which was then televised actually here in the tower. So I think for Lonza on the D&I topic, we have come a long way. We have a long way to go, for sure. In the 3 years that I have been here, I will say, and we were talking about this actually with Caroline, our CHRO, yesterday, we have come a long way. And actually, I think hand on heart, to actually have a calendar of events on International Women's Day is a huge step forward for Lonza. We didn't have that 3 years ago. We now have Rise Up is sort of more a grassroots effort. But as an organisation, we have our SDG goals. Gender equality is one of those. Caroline is our CHRO, is the sponsor for that. And us as an organisation, we've got a lot of plans in place. And certainly, Madlaina, from a recruitment point of view, we do, don't we, with D&I and sort of the working with hiring managers on, making sure we've got a diverse slate, etc. And sort of as we go through that recruitment funnel. But we aren't there yet. I think any organisation, I don't think anyone is completely coined or, capped the D&I journey. It is a journey. There's never, you never stand still with it. But yes, I think for us at Lonza, it was a great day yesterday, and one that we should be proud of. So, yeah.
No, it's great to hear. And I think, as you mentioned, the fact that we now have this time in the calendar year that is put aside largely to bring awareness to diversity and inclusion. I mean, it's not something that's been running for that long, and I think it is actually it's good because it does bring up these topics of conversation and makes people think twice about where they are in the journey, what can be done better, and always looking to improve. I think because changing people's mindsets on this is something that takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. So I think having this these days and these events over the course of March always is going to help with the process, really.
Totally. We say it's a marathon and not a sprint.
It is. It is. And we from the recruitment team, we really try to bring on board the hiring managers and also showcase to the hiring managers, why is this so important? Why is this important for the Lonza's organization, for the culture of Lonza, but also for the employer brand of Lonza. And I think there has a lot happened about the awareness in the last couple of years.
No, that's it. And I think you mentioned the word why something happened there, and I think that it kind of leads on to the next question, because I think it's always a good starting point to start with why you want to do something, why it's important to do, because that's what tends to drive people. I noticed that Sally, you follow Simon Sinek on LinkedIn, and he's someone that we try to use as a basis when we're doing interviews ourselves here. So I thought I'd ask you, looking at your careers, why you actually decided to go into a career in recruitment and talent in the first place. So maybe Madlaina, if you want to take this one first, and then Sally can follow on.
Yes, so the plan was different originally. However, I do believe recruitment is really one of the major part of the employee life cycle, as we all know. And it is the step in the life cycle where a company is promoting its strengths as an employer on the labor market and is trying to attract talent. And this step is extremely important to attract talent that will shape the future of the company. It is also one of the parts of the employee life cycle that is changing on a constant basis due to the labor market circumstances, the migration laws, for example. The pandemic showed us how quickly situations can change, the competitive landscape, and of course the demographics, something that we are all facing, particularly also in Switzerland, a really, really big challenge going forward. So therefore, companies have to come up with new strategies. And I believe that as a recruiter, you are involved in shaping the future of a company, and you need many different skill sets to become a successful recruiter. So you need to be able to communicate well across cultures, which again loops back into the diversity piece that we just discussed. You need to be able to sell and pitch your organization. You need to be able to build long-term, strong stakeholder relationships on one hand side to the hiring managers, but also to your candidates. And you need to understand what good team dynamics mean and what is helping people to become successful. And last but not least, I believe agility is one of the key aspects of recruitment. So to manage multiple tasks at the same time, with a strong ability to prioritize what needs to be done next. And therefore, I believe being a recruiter is a very, very challenging, but also very, very exciting part of HR.
No, I agree. It's definitely challenging and exciting. And I think the one thing that someone said to me a few years ago, in recruitment, it's one of the only roles out there where the product, if you like, that you're working with has a mindset and a personality all of its own, and you never quite know what's going to happen from day to day. It's very different from selling a physical product out there, you know. So I think it does keep you on your toes, and you, as you say, you've got to be agile, you've got to be good at changing, prioritizing, and the stakeholder management as well. I mean, was this the same for you, Sally?
Yes and no. It's kind of one of those, I fell into the industry, I suppose, if I'm honest. Way back, I started as a secretary in an advertising agency. And I think most people, when they think of advertising, they think of sort of the consumer side. And there was this little world that was recruitment advertising, which clearly has evolved. And now, EVP talent marketing, there's the social media content. I was of the age where media was an add-on, or the online was an add-on to the press. So I sort of started in that kind of world, working up from a coordinator to a account director, mostly in London, in various ad agencies in London. And then I hadn't heard of the RPO world, the recruitment process outsourcing world. So that was where I then moved across into, I suppose, if you like, there was sort of a consulting umbrella within an RPO. And then so sort of still doing the same thing, I suppose, working with clients on whatever it might be, setting up their graduate campaigns, their Facebook pages. I remember working with Deloitte and their Facebook pages sort of about 10 years ago. And then with that RPO that I worked with, I then moved to Asia. So I spent 8 years out in Singapore, and then I went in-house, so doing my role in-house, so the talent attraction side. And I suppose that has evolved over the time, because way back you didn't have that in-house. So I suppose that as a market within the world, recruitment advertising, and now there's obviously social media content, there's content creators, there's content developers. So that as an industry has evolved. So for me, I sort of, I fell into it, and it's an industry that I do love, because you sort of, there's so many different opportunities and there's so much you can sort of work with. So it's taken me around the globe. And I suppose like I said yesterday, with the 5 generations in the workplace, you have to change. The whole industry has changed, but we've moved along with it, as I say, from ads in papers to now pure digital, and the Gen Zers with purely only digital. So it's certainly something I fell into, but love, and has evolved over time.
And I mean, you do tend to find that it is a profession that largely people do fall into. It's maybe it's in between a few different roles and a unique set of skill sets that can be used. Really, I think and I guess you've mentioned a lot there about the changing technologies that are available, and I think we've all seen, especially in the recent years, you have elements of BI and data and a lot of analytics out there. And so I was kind of wondering what instruments Lonza use to attract and enhance the brand of the Lonza experience. I mean, Madlaina, are there particular instruments the business uses to really bring on and retain the best people out there?
Yes, I think it's very, very important that we see that in the kind of industry we are in, and in the kind of our labor markets and how they develop. It's very, very important to showcase what an organization can offer to employees, basically, and showcase their strengths. So, for example, what is very important for us as the recruitment team is to have a very clear employee value proposition, and that is combined with really strong videos that showcase the different sides and business units of Lonza, and also specifically what they do and the impact that they have. So strong storytelling is absolutely super important from the part of what is this organization doing, what kind of meaningful impact is this organization having, but also career stories and career path at Lonza. And this is something that we are utilizing a lot to attract future employees. And it's a very powerful message that you can give to a talent market. We also work together, and we are partnering very, very closely with Sally and her team from Global Talent Attraction to also utilize talent attraction tools such as, for example, programmatic campaigns to penetrate new markets, increase the brand awareness in markets where potentially Lonza's brand awareness is not as big as we should have it in order to attract talent. We are participating at online and also on-site career fairs in various markets to attract, for example, graduates in biotechnology, chemistry, and engineering. And we have, as a team, set up our recruitment team functionally to make sure that we have strong experts concerning the key roles where we really need to pipeline the talents for the future. And last but not least, we are really trying to focus on a strong and good candidate experience. Making sure that candidates have a single point of contact, even so when they are applying for multiple roles, making sure that a candidate has a clear communication and is always kept updated on what's going on, because we all know how important candidate experiences are in a time when everybody is interlinked with his or her network. It's absolutely adamant that we give candidates a great experience.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Thomas here. I hope that you're well and you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you once again for your continued support listening to the podcast. I just wanted to break into the recording to talk to you about a really exciting partnership that EMEA Recruitment has along with Operation Smile. And as founder of EMEA Recruitment, it's an honour and a privilege to announce this partnership. Personally, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, so the mission of Operation Smile is something that I have a strong personal connection with. It's not an understatement to say that the dentists and surgeons that helped me were life changers. It's not only about the actual operations that take place, the support and care post and pre-operation are beyond value, and from personal experience I can only say that I'd not be the confident, happy person I am today without this support. I want to help children experience the support and care and skill that I experienced on my journey, and hope that we can do this along with Operation Smile. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, and the mission of Operation Smile is to provide help and support to these children through providing 6,000 medical volunteers across 80 countries who are dedicated to help these children with facial conditions, most commonly cleft lip and cleft palate. More than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year. and they are often unable to speak, eat, socialise or even smile. However, it can take as little as 45 minutes and cost just €180 or 182 francs for Operation Smile to provide a child with life-changing surgery. Now, in partnership with Operation Smile, EMEA Recruitment is raising valuable funds and aiming to create 100 new smiles to support the organisation to provide free surgeries for children and young adults all over the world. Please help us by donating through the link in the bio or get in touch to see how your company can help get involved too. For the moment, I'll leave you to carry on listening to the rest of the podcast, but if there's anything I can do in terms of answering any questions or finding out how you can help and support EMEA Recruitment and Operation Smile, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you once again and enjoy the rest of the podcast. No, I mean, I think, all the things you mentioned there. So making sure the value proposition is out there, the storytelling, making sure the career successes are well known to the job seekers or to networks generally. All these things, they contribute to that great brand experience that the individuals have when they go through a process. And I think it's, as you mentioned there, that is something that's is vital, really, because you can only hire one person for one job, so there's every person you hire, there's going to be plenty that are being rejected or don't even get an interview, but they might be right for a job that comes around in 2 weeks' time, so you want to make sure the Lonza brand is strong. And from what I hear and see, the business is doing some great things from that perspective, and there's a lot of positive feedback coming from the network from that point of view. I think one of the things I remember that really amazed me, actually, when we caught up a while ago, we're at the height of the COVID period, and I remember having a call with you, and you were saying, well, we've hired over 2,000 people over the COVID period in 2021, and I thought, wow, there's not many companies that would that were in the mindset to do that in the first place. But then also, I don't think there's many companies that could have done that in terms of the process and the procedure behind it. So, I mean, Sally, I thought I'd just ask you how was that possible to get to recruit that volume of people over the COVID period, when obviously, there was a lot of people not willing to change roles. There was difficulty meeting people in person. It was probably the hardest time, certainly in recent history, where to recruit people, but you brought in over 2,000 people. So you must be doing something right there.
We had a very planned approach, I would say, and you need to in times like that, so yes, planned approach where you've got to evaluate it and review it on a regular basis. But like Madlaina talked about, there's a strong team there and we're all driving in the same direction. Certainly when times like that, definitely it's tough. You're all suddenly working at home, but obviously we are a contract manufacturing organisation. So the vast majority of our workforce are not, but us that are trying to fill those roles, we are all suddenly being told to, you're staying at home. So you naturally, you have to sort of, I suppose, you come together. So you're all driving in that same direction, recruitment, HR, the line managers, we all need to be able to hire on time and able to support our customers ultimately to deliver what we need to, and in a time like that, for us, yes, we had a spike of activities that we were delivering. So, as we talk about, and innovations in medicines that help treat clearly a wide range of diseases that we work with. But yeah, for an organisation like that, it's very much planned, evaluate, review, and all come together.
Yeah, and potentially, if I could add something there. First of all, the over 2,000 people were hired only in Switzerland. So globally, Lonza hired
you say Switzerland, only Visp, wasn't it?
1,900 in Visp. So in total, we were 2,300 in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And
that's a big.
I think what really, really helped us, we were in a position to offer roles in a state-of-the-art production facility.
Yes.
to tackle one of the major global problems of our time. And our employee value proposition is making a meaningful difference. And this is exactly what we could offer to new hires. And I also believe the super strong collaboration that we had with talent attraction, but also with global mobility, helped us to support the candidates in times of ambiguity concerning their move to Switzerland. And the excellent collaboration of Lonza with the cantonal and federal authorities helps to find solutions for challenges which can occur when you are all of a sudden having to hire a large number of people also outside of the EU EFTA countries.
And that changes
in such a short time. And all of that helped us to sort out a lot of challenges in a relatively short time.
No, it's really interesting because, I mean, obviously you mentioned about the process, the structure, the procedures that you have in place. But I think the thing you both touched on as well, and you mentioned it earlier in the discussion, is there's a lot of stakeholder management involved in this, regardless of whether it's internal recruiters or external individuals. And I just thought it might be nice to get a bit of insight into that, because anyone listening to the podcast who wants to emulate what you've both done in your careers and go down this route of recruitment. So I think, stakeholder management is clearly a huge part of it. So are there any particular personality strengths you think you both have that lend itself to stakeholder management that you think people should be aware of if they're thinking of taking a career in the same direction as yourselves?
Listen is a key thing for me, for any stakeholder management. Definitely, it's listening. You might not necessarily be able to solve the problem there and now, but it's being a people person, isn't it? It's listening. I think, Madlaina, you probably would agree on that one.
I would absolutely agree. And also listening between the lines. We are coming from different cultures, from different backgrounds. We are communicating differently. So it's very, very important to actively listen to the counterpart. And what I also believe is super important is to have empathy. So we know in times of huge stress, we know that we are all affected by stress in different ways. So having empathy with your counterpart, understanding that not everybody has always a good day, and not everybody is always super cheerful, helps extremely well to give also this human aspect when you are working with stakeholders. And I think really listening and empathy are cornerstones of good stakeholder management.
I think it's interesting because I think those two also are quite interlinked. If you show good listening skills, then you become more empathetic as a result. And it's a skill. I mean, I don't know what you find, but if you're asking people what their strengths are in an interview, it's very rare people will say listening is one of their best skills. It almost gets overlooked a lot of the time. But I think especially in the world we live in now, where I think the average teenager has a 3-second attention span thanks to YouTube and online videos. It's listening and actually paying attention for even a short amount of time. It differentiates people from the average. So that's a good. I think that's a good tip for people to take on board for this. I think.
Well, I think a lot of this stemmed from the pandemic as well. I think there's a lot pre and post, and like we said, we were suddenly working at home, and some people might be living on their own, so they're isolated. Yes, a big part of our, organisation is manufacturing, but, and I think there's a lot you can read about that. But, it's asking as managers, it's asking your team members, how are you? Mm-hmm. But not as a pass-by comment. It's then listening to the response. And I think we can take we're now more back in the office. We have our hybrid work policy, so we're more present. And I think people needed that and want that more face-to-face. It's sort of about that connectivity again. But I think, yes, there was sort of good and bad that came out of the pandemic. But I think for me, and Madlaina will no doubt agree, but as managers, that empathy, that listening, that asking, and actually, yes, what is, are you okay? How are things? But just listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very, very important point. And not being physically together, not being able to also clearly see the nonverbal communication is very, very important. So to have the cameras on, to try to really listen well and understand how is the counterpart, I think has been extremely important during the pandemic for all of us.
I mean, Madlaina, do you think this approach to listening and being empathetic is one of the key things that differentiates Lonza from other employers, or are there other things you think are also worth noting?
I think the culture of Lonza is very, very strong and is also very, very much shaped by the strategy, basically come, stay and grow. So there is a lot of focus on retention. There is a lot of focus on offering people the chance to really develop within the organization. And because that is really a cornerstone of the people strategy, I firmly believe, yes, Lonza has a very, very strong and very good culture that is helping to be empathetic with your co-worker, with your colleague, with your peer, with your employee, but also with your manager and with senior management.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, Sally, is that you to go along with those thoughts as well, I guess?
Definitely, yes. For us, come, stay, grow, and make a meaningful difference is a big part of us as an organisation, and certainly from a HR point of view. So yes, Caroline Bath has very much driven our people strategy. Clearly in my area, from a talent attraction point of view, it's more on the come piece. What's our talent attraction funnel and how are we bringing candidates into that funnel? But us as a HR organisation that are servicing the business, yes, how can we look at the retention? So what is that stay and that grow part within the organisation, so the people development, because yes, I mean, any organisation will get attrition for sure, but you need to look at the why, because we can't keep feeding into the top of the funnel if people are leaving. Attrition happens, but this come, stay, grow is our anchor, I suppose, if you like. And then different parts of the HR organisation will obviously play their part to bring it to life.
No, that's and the question I was going to ask you as well, and it's linked to what you just mentioned there around recruitment, and I think earlier on you mentioned you've got very strong processes in place in the business, and so I thought I'd just ask you really what your views are in having what the right processes are to get the right people in an efficient and effective manner. I mean, Sally, given that you mentioned that, maybe it's good we start with you, and then Madlaina can add something to that as well.
So processes. So from a global, I suppose, talent attraction point of view, sitting in talent acquisition, we'll have global strategic projects, if you like. So our talent referral program, that's a big driver for us. Career sites, so they're big projects that I suppose sit, if you like, a global pillar point of view. And then, to be very crude, our bums on our seats, which are, the hires across the sites. So we have quite structured, if you like, site strategies for our key sites that we are driving, and that's where talent attraction partners very much with Madlaina and the recruitment team. So what global initiatives have we got? How do they feed in at a local level? But then at a local level, what are the higher demands? What is our BAU? So our BAU is your key, your job boards. We've got LinkedIn. Clearly, that's the key driver for everybody. What are our key job boards per location? But what else? So going back to what Madlaina was saying, the events. What events are we doing? Now we can get back out on campus. What event are we doing in Portsmouth versus Slough versus Helene versus Visp, etc.? Are we doing in-person ones? Are we doing virtual ones? Pay-per-click campaigns? Are we doing billboards? Are we doing gas station adverts? As only the US, when I say gas station, I would say petrol if it was the UK, but you know what I'm talking about. So for us, yes, we have process in place, so very much a global pillar, and then I suppose, if you like, local initiatives from a talent attraction, and then obviously from a recruitment team, the process, I suppose, take through the funnel, if you like.
Exactly, and make sure that we have a recruitment process that is enabling a candidate to have a very similar experience, irrespective from where he or she does apply. So it's very, very important to have a very structured recruitment process to make sure that we follow that recruitment process. But I also would like to say, I mean, as you all know, since we are all in the hiring space, a lot of the people we need are not actively looking for a new job. So they are not going on job boards. They are not applying for roles that we are publishing. So we need to reach out to those guys. We need to make them aware of us. And here is, for example, what we did particularly for operators is have advertisement in train stations, on trams, in buses, making sure the people that we knew, they will still commute to their workspace because they are working in manufacturing sites, to make them aware, or also partner with different organizations, for example, the unemployment offices, particularly during COVID, when we knew that manufacturing sites in Switzerland were laying off people. Yes, they were not manufacturing sites in biotechnology or pharma, but these were all manufacturing professionals. How to get to them, how to get to people that are not on LinkedIn or on Xing, how to get to those guys. And we've done a lot of very, very different initiatives in different countries based on the ways on how people are basically moving around. So, for example, in the Netherlands, more focusing on bike shops, for example, where lots of people are biking, or
It's that passive versus active,
exactly.
isn't it?
And in Switzerland, more in train stations, buses, trams, and so on. And that has helped us a lot to really make sure that we can attract the right people that are not actively looking for a job.
We call that multi-pronged approach. And you have to, like Madlaina said, there's people that are not, there's your passive audience, you've got your active, but you've got to come at them, if you like, in multiple ways. And then something will stick at some point along their journey. So going back to that talent attraction funnel, what activities and what attraction materials do we feed them, if you like, at varying points through that attraction funnel for them to consider before they, ultimately our action that we want them to take is to click apply.
Exactly.
No, it's interesting because I think as the years have gone on and we have so much access to more and more information now, we have more influence of BI and data on our lives at home and work. It's every discipline is affected in a different way with this, and I think with recruitment, I think what I see and think will happen more in the future, it will it's already changing the discipline. I think what it's doing it's actually highlighting the people who aren't very good at the job and who basically just rely on LinkedIn and say, okay, well, if I post this, I'll wait for the jobs people to come and I'll just approach LinkedIn. I think the good recruiters out there do exactly what you mentioned. You've got to think on your feet a bit. You've got to look at the cultural fit, find out what they're doing. Coming back to what you were saying earlier, the listening side, find out really what motivates people and just get to know people rather than rely on the easy option of just tools that are available to reach out and have an email or a WhatsApp chat. I think I think that's the way I can see the recruitment model going, really. And I think you're kind of already a step ahead on that from what you're saying as well.
It's good to hear.
Well, obviously, you mentioned yourself. We can't always get it right. Sometimes you bring people in and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. And I was asked a question about 3 years ago, and there's not many questions on recruitment that I struggle to give a detailed answer to. But this one got me a bit stumped. So I thought, well, okay, who better to ask than the combined experience of 25 years in talent acquisition? Then you might be able to help with the answer on this. So, what do you feel is the true cost of the wrong hire?
I have to say this is something that is a very, very important question to ask, Paul, honestly, because we need to be aware what this cost is. And I'm referring to some research that the Recruitment and Employment Confederation has done on this particular point. And it is a very high number that they came up with, because that is also taking into consideration calculation includes, for example, wasted salaries, the wasted training costs, the time and efforts involved in recruiting and training a new employee, but also the lost productivity of the new employee, the lost productivity of the team that will have to take over additional tasks, and also the efforts that the team has basically done in onboarding a wrong hire, which can, and this is also something that we need to address very clearly, a wrong hire can result in turnover, because it can result in demotivation and stressful situations for the rest of the team. So in total, the Recruitment and Employment Confederation calculated a cost of a wrong hire of up to 3 times the yearly salary of a wrong hiring decision.
It's a tough one. I think, yes, it's a tough one to define. I think it's, sometimes it can be a bit like, what's your ROI on something? There's a lot of parameters that can sort of consider into that. And I think, yeah, exactly what you said there, Madlaina, it can be an association of all sorts, salary, the training, loss of productivity. But I think for me as well, some of it is you have to ask them why, because as well, from a talent attraction point of view, you have to understand, is the sell wrong? It's not a sales role they're doing, but is what you're portraying out to the external market and what they've experienced through the funnel to then what they're doing, where's the disconnect in that would be, and there isn't a cost that you can put around there, but I think, yes, there's a cost of a missed hire, and I think we've all seen those slide decks with the the big ice, it's kind of like the cost underneath you can't define, but I think you have to ask why.
Exactly. That is a very, very important question. And you also need to be aware you are hiring a personality, not only an expert. So to not only focus on the technical skill sets, but also on the behavioral skill sets is extremely important, because this person is not only coming along with all the technical expertise, it's coming along with a personality that needs to be a fit for an organization and for a team. And therefore, it's so important to go much deeper than just review the technical skill sets.
Not every organization is going to get it right 100% of the time. That is reality. It's the same with holiday. You might have high expectations of where you're going on holiday and it doesn't meet it, for whatever reason, or you're buying a car, or you have expectations of what your car will be. Same with a job. You have personal expectations as to what you think that company is, what it's portrayed as, what reality is, and they might differ. So any organization, you're never going to get it right 100% of the time, but I think it's why. And then you need to look at that why, and what was that disconnect? What do we need to change, or what do we not need to change, or what is it?
I mean, because on that, so you mentioned looking back and thinking, what do we need to change? I was kind of just wondering, because obviously you were very active over the COVID period in hiring people, and obviously you can't meet people in person over that time, So I wondered, did you have to change anything in terms of the retention plan as a result of the different way you were hiring people, because obviously if you're not meeting people, there's less of a personal connection there, so did you have to alter anything in obviously on the onboarding, but more the general retention of people, the people you took on over COVID?
It's an interesting one. I think through the whole process, obviously we were doing video interviewing. I think that was you were asking more about the onboarding and the retention, but I think all of the process had to change. So that was a change for some of the hiring managers, because they were used to doing things face to face, and suddenly we were asking them to do them on video. But yes, there's a high proportion of individuals that were onboarded at home. And what was that experience like for them? I think that was like anything, so the onboarding, currently in Switzerland, we have a big onboarding day down in Visp, which is not just for the Visp site, it's for the whole of Switzerland. So that had to pivot, it's probably the word of last year, to being onboarded virtually. I think from a retention, it's a good question. And I suppose we're still dealing with that, actually, because now, the individuals it was September last year was more come back to work kind of thing. For those that are office based, like we've said a couple of times, we are clearly manufacturing. So a high proportion of our 17,000 plus employees are on the manufacturing sites. So for those, so they were onboarded still in the normal way. Yeah. Perhaps it's more just for their team leads, but some of those that could work in the office were onboarded at home and are now transitioning back. Yeah. I don't know if that really answers your question, Paul, but I suppose it's been you have to adapt along the way, I think, like a lot of organisations. I think that was the big takeaway. A lot of people progressed a lot of their tech, I suppose, roadmap, if you like. Suddenly it was just, it was sped up at a speed that we did things like meet and engage chat events through the pandemic because we couldn't do in person. We did virtual Indeed events that we haven't done before. Yeah. But we will continue post-pandemic, and I think you do take away a bit like the asking your team members how they are. I think there's a lot to take away from the pandemic time. I don't think it's ever going to leave us, that we can then bring into to now, really. So yes, like video interviewing, we try and obviously now go back to in person. But yes, you have to, through the pandemic, change some of the processes, I suppose. So yes, the onboarding had changed. There was a lot that we had to do.
And I think we also have to be very flexible on the way, on what we are doing, how we are doing it, and to think out of the box and come up with new ideas. So, for example, one thing that we faced that was really, really a challenge during the pandemic and during the time when it was really, really difficult to do face-to-face interviews is to get everything set up correctly, that we could still do guided tours through the manufacturing facilities for operators and people working in manufacturing that were coming from other industries, because it was very important to showcase them during the interview phase. What does it mean to work in a clean room? What is the impact on yourself, on your body, when you are going to work in a clean room where you have to go through a long gouging process, where you have to work with a face mask and in an overall, in a very protective environment and do shift work. So there we had to be very, very flexible and can come up with a lot of things, how we could make sure that we keep up all the COVID regulations and give the people still the possibility. And I think that has helped us to not have a very high attrition rate because of that. On the other hand side, we started to hire a lot of people internationally that we then brought to Switzerland, including to Visp, to a very different region, to a very different culture. So a lot of stuff came out of that. A very, very strong collaboration with Vale for You, for example, a very strong focus on helping parents to move to some regions in Switzerland and connecting them with other parents that recently have moved from other cultures. A lot of great initiatives came out of that. And I think all organizations had to think out of the box.
No, I'd agree. And it's what we've seen, ourselves. I think clients or hiring managers are now much more focused on the person behind the CV than what they were before, and the drivers and motivations behind the achievements. But also, I think, job seekers have generally changed their approach in terms of the priority and how they assess what company or person they're gonna work for. Because I think, certainly I can remember, 10, 15 years ago, the first question that got asked by most people was, well, how much is this role paying? You know, and that was always the center of it. And it's not saying that is now not important, but definitely there's much more emphasis on the vision, the values, going back to what we were talking about earlier, diversity and inclusion, the whole brands, the you know, the storytelling of the business. These are the things that people have much more interest in now, and that's not just the people looking for their first jobs. That's also the people who are experienced in their careers. You know, they want to hear about the story of the business and the values that the business has. You know, because then I think if you line those things up, then people tend to kind of enjoy their jobs more, which then makes everybody happy and helps with retention. So it's a bit of a cycle that goes around. But I think the one thing that coming on to the and people enjoying their jobs. I mean, well, I think it's clear, you know, there's a lot of energy coming out of that room in Basel, you know, and it's obvious that you're both enjoy your job and you're really proud of what you've achieved in the business. So I thought, you know, the penultimate question was really, what, if you look back on what you've both done at Lonza, what are you most proud of concerning your contribution to Lonza's growth? Maybe Madlaina, if you want to take that one first.
Yes, I thought about that one, and I have to say what I am really most proud of is to be able to make a meaningful difference by contributing to some projects that were of great importance to overcome a global pandemic. The opportunity to be part of such an initiative and to see that people with a joint goal can make the almost impossible possible is an experience that I will never, ever forget. And my personal contribution to Lonza's growth has honestly fostered a very strong sense of belonging and has been a great motivation for me in the last 3 years.
Right, it's great. It's great to hear. You know, I mean, I think you can tell. I mean, you know, it's just, as I say, there's a lot of, you can tell you're really excited about what's been achieved, what you're doing, and the energy level is there. You know, and I think that's always a way you can tell when someone's being genuine as well about it. So it's great to hear that. You know, these are some of the things that you look back on and feel really proud of from the time there. I mean, Sally, the same question for you, really.
No, and I think similar to Madlaina, I think, you know, having a structured people strategy, and I think, you know, yes, you've got your sort of overarching North Star, I suppose, if you like, but when you take it down to your individual contribution, so for me, heading up talent attraction over the years, certainly something I can sit and say now. You know, when I started, it was just 2 of us, and now there's a team of 5, and we're, you know, working to sort of move things forward. So for me, on a personal level, sort of in my day job and sort of seeing the team grow and what we can deliver and what we can help support the recruitment team, the HR, and ultimately the business to start sort of, you know, attracting the great talent that we want to come and work at Lonza. I think for me, on a personal level, that's been lovely to see the little team that I have in talent attraction sort of grow. That's been a real joy for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great to hear, and I think, you know, just to maybe pick up on what you both said there. I mean, you know, from the experience from maybe an outsider perspective, I mean, I've definitely seen people's impression of Lonza as a business change over the last 10, 15 years. You know, I think people see it now as a completely different business to what it was, 15 years ago, and it is a lot more well known as well. I mean, I think in Basel you have quite a number of other companies in Basel, vying for the talents and so on. But I think 15 years ago, Lonza I don't think was known by a lot of international people, whereas now I think the brand name is out there. People are aware of what the business does. There's a lot of good things being said. So the work you guys are doing and your colleagues are doing is definitely working. So just to emphasize, from an outsider's point of view, what's happening is all good as well. And I think I thought the last question I was going to ask you, we talked a lot about how you can inspire other people in the discipline. We talked about how stakeholder management and things you all kind of bring to the table. But I thought it'd be good for the last question to almost turn it around and put you on the other side of the table, really, and just ask you who inspires you really as an individual. I thought maybe Sally, if you want to take this one first.
Sure. I think it's a really interesting question, actually, because I think at varying points in my life or at varying points. Different people will inspire you, I suppose. But for me, and clearly you mentioned about Simon, I think there's various, I seem to have gotten on a bit of a book reading journey. So my recent one was Jay Shetty, actually, Think Like a Monk. And I think that was actually quite really inspiring in some ways, for an individual, whilst, sort of give up everything, and go and become a monk, and where he is now and what he's doing and his journey. So I think there's sort of varying people that inspire me. I certainly would say that the Queen certainly inspired me, her journey, her personal value and what she gave to society. But certainly from a work point of view, people that inspire me here within the organisation, I would definitely say people like Caroline Barth, our CHRO, from a EC member and coming in, and sort of her drive and determination that she has within the organisation. So I think there's always different people will inspire you at different points, I suppose, in your life journey. But there are a couple to share with you for the here and now.
No, and I think you mentioned Jay Shetty there. I mean, I've actually also read that book, Think Like a Monk, and I think it's really excellent book, really easy to read. He's very engaging guy on social media as well. But I think that also kind of links back to what we were talking about a bit earlier with with the whole COVID situation we all went through. I think it just makes you realize actually, you need to spend time looking after yourself as well. I mean, it's and that's a big thing for him. As you say, he took that time out to become a monk, but then now his business practice is much more around bringing those principles into your daily life and making sure you look after yourself mentally and physically as well. Which is brilliant. I think it's a great combination. Yeah. And so, Madlaina, for you?
So I can only back what Sally said. I'm very much inspired by Caroline Barth, our CHRO. I believe she is really a strong leader with a clear focus on people, but also on diversity and on culture. Caroline Barth came in also in a time where it was very important for Lonza to have somebody that inspired people, because we were in lockdown. It was a very, very difficult time for all of us. And I remember
in the pandemic.
She onboarded in the pandemic, and she did a couple of videos for everybody at Lonza where she just showed empathy with everybody and was showcasing, I'm going through the entirely the same situation like you. I totally understand you. I hear you. I'm here for you. And also she has defined a very strong HR strategy with exactly the essence: come, stay, and grow, focusing on internal development, focusing on retention, understanding the challenges of the talent markets as we are seeing them today, and as they are heavily influenced by demographics, for example, changing key motivators of the future generations. And I have been really been inspired by her and her positive way of communicating also very difficult subjects has, I think, really helped all of us to remain strong and remain positive.
I mean, it's good to hear. I mean, especially the person inspiring is someone that you're working with on a day-to-day basis who has a big impact on, on the business as a whole. I mean, that's always a good sign and a good look into the future of what's possible at Lonza as well. So no, it's great to hear this from both of you, and I think a great way to end the podcast, really. I think I just want to say huge thanks to both of you for spending the time with us. Really grateful for the time you put aside, because I know it's pretty busy still over there, and obviously really excited to get this published and promoted, and I think obviously it's good for us, but the network out there, if any of them want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can connect with you? Is it via LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, more than happy. And I think both of us are quite excited with. Clearly, you can hear all the different approaches we've done, but podcast is something new for both of us. So very exciting.
Absolutely. We are there for all kinds of questions, and I'm sure also our teams will be very happy to also share this podcast to their networks in order to make sure.
Looking forward to hearing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
No, that's excellent. Well, I know you should try and do something most days to push you out your comfort zone and try something different.
Exactly.
So you started the day with a tick next to that box. So that's good. Good news. So it's,
Thank you.
yeah, just once again a huge thanks to both of you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for setting it up.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you'd like to reach out to Paul or myself, please feel free to send a connection through on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you can find them all at our website, www.emearecruitment.eu.